Resiliency defined, combating mental health conditions. I'm instructor Rick Campos. Nice to meet you. So, what is the purpose of this course? Well, the purpose of this course is to describe the importance of the role resilience plays in the day to day life of first responders. We're going to describe the criticality of maintaining and continuing to develop resilience when experiencing critical events. We're going to define resilience. We're going to explain what happens when first responders lack resilience. We're going to offer ways to develop resilience. And we're going to learn how resilience helps to prevent post traumatic stress disorder. Lastly, we're going to try to understand the respond method for evaluating possible mental health issues. Now, what is resiliency and why is it important? Well, resiliency is a person's ability to cope with a crisis, both mentally and emotionally, and their ability to return to pre crisis state quickly. Now, when will this exist? Well, resilience is going to exist when a person can use mental processes, behaviors, and coping skills. When they protect themselves from negative effects from experienced stressors. Now, why is it important? Why is it important to have resiliency? As we talk about resiliency, we understand that it's going to exist within people who are able to develop a couple things. One, their psychological capacity, and two, their behavioral capacity. Now, what this does is this allows them to remain calm during stressful events like a crisis or a chaos. Resiliency can be described as the ability to move forward from critical incidents without long term negative consequences. Now, resilience is not, and I repeat, not about a person overcoming a deeply stressful experience. Now, what it is, it's how a person rebounds from adversity as a stronger and more resourceful person. An integration of physical, mental, and spiritual tools in good and bad circumstances. Resilience also is creating a sense of self. And now this sense of self is able to maintain normative behavior after a crisis or stressful event. When one is facing constant stress, the body and mind's reaction to that stress disrupts our senses. It disrupts our senses of internal and external balance. Now, what does this disruption do? This disruption presents challenges, but it also presents opportunities. Now, why is it important? In the 1980s, resilience emerged as a theoretical research topic. Since then, academic researchers search for protective factors. Now, these protective factors are the ability to explain a person's ability to adapt positively to adverse conditions. It also may explain why two people who experience the same event and why one person may have a positive outcome and while another experiences trauma and perhaps even has adverse or mental health conditions to it. Resilience should be recognized as a process. It should be recognized as a process rather than a specific trait in which an individual can possess. Now, we know those people that always see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's a sense of resiliency. And we also know the person who sees the glass as half empty. And what we're trying to say here is that resiliency can be taught, and it is a process of learning. Now, some, of course, it may be easier than the other, but it is just a process. Current research shows that resilience is the cumulative result of an individual's ability to promote well being and protect themselves against the overwhelming influence of negative risk factors. If you see here, we have this graph here. This graph kind of gives you an illustration of when low felt is needed and when high felt is needed, such as low resilience, high resilience. During a honeymoon phase, everything's great. You're not going to really need any resilience. But as we go up into the trigger events, look how that high felt is needed. It even can come to the anniversary of certain instances. An anniversary of a trauma may spike your resiliency. And you notice how, as we start the reconstruction, it starts going down until we have a setback and it might spike. But then we work through it and we go back. Now, when we have resilience, as we stated before, we're able to, in a sense, bounce back. But what happens when we lack resilience? When we lack resilience, we lack the ability to cope with stress in a positive way because dealing with stress in a positive way has health benefits. Resilience is associated with lower rates of depression and anxiety, as well as a greater satisfaction with life. When a person lacks resilience, they are unable to handle stress well in difficult situations. So, by understanding resilience and taking care of your body, you're actually building up your, in fact, resilience to stressors. Just like if you were to go to the gym, you go to the gym one time and lift up a 10-pound weight. The first time it might be a little difficult, but as you continuously go to the gym continues, it's a process and work out and work out and work out. That 10-pound weight isn't 10 pounds anymore. It's life feels lighter. You move up to 15 pounds. Again, it's a process to build up resiliency. Now, as we deal with a lack of resiliency, we also deal with chronic stress because chronic stress is associated with significant physical and mental health issues. Now, what could stress do to the body? Some may say that, well, I just feel stressed. Well, as we feel stressed, it's a domino effect. Look at what it does to the body. It can give you high blood pressure, heartburn, indigestion, irregular blood sugar, fatigue, and lastly, heart disease. That's just from being stressed. Now, what can it do to our mental health? Chronic stress could challenge our mental health in many different ways, such as emotional reactivity, right? Either being too sad or too angry, flying off the handle, in a sense. Psychological distress, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, depression, post traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, substance abuse, and co occurring disorders. Now, as we build our resilience, we have to understand that even though we have resilience, it does not prevent a first responder from experiencing stress, emotional pain, grief, or overwhelming emotions. But what is resilience? Well, resilience is the mental outlook. The mental outlook of a resilient person allows them to work through these feelings and recover. Especially after facing critical events, receiving help from a mental health professional may be necessary to develop a deeper level of resiliency in a first responder. If we take a look at this chart here, this chart shows resiliency. It shows resilience through 25-minute interval in a police officer's day. First of all, to all you police officers, I want to thank you all for what you do. And as we delve more and more into mental health of first responders, we understand that police officers deal way more than what the public sees. Now, in this chart, the officer has an elevated heart rate during the scenario. Following the scenario, the heart rate drops and then, of course, returns to normal. Without resilience, the officer would have an elevated heart rate for longer. It would also be possible that without resilience, this officer would experience PTSD symptoms, such as hyperarousal and other similar events, experiencing similar physiological responses without experiencing a threatening event. Symptoms must exist for greater than 4 weeks or a month to qualify for PTSD. But, big but here, do not discount it. In a sense that if you feel the symptoms of PTSD before that month is over, go see a professional. Get ahead of it. Get ahead of it. As you can see here, just as we discussed our gym metaphor, just as a firefighter trains consistently, yes, it is to do our job better, but it is also so that we can do our job, we can elevate our heart rate, and then bring our heart rate down, building resilience. Now, we know that chronic stress can hurt the body, but building resilience has many positive effects, such as sharpen and maintain a first responder situational awareness, increases mental clarity, improves communication, allows for flexible and focused thinking, especially under pressure, improves reaction times and coordination, reduces fatigue and sleeplessness, and increases, now this is a big one, I love this one because it increases positive relationships. So you can see building resilience has a lot of pluses and bonuses. Now, just as there are positives, there's always negatives. So if we fail ourselves and not develop resiliency, it can become fatal, such as a fatality, first responder. Sadly, suicide. Fatality in those who may be receiving care from the first responder, as we deal with compassion fatigue, and we discussed that earlier. So building resilience has the benefits we need to do our job. And it's not just do our job, but it is also live our life. The benefits include preserves normal cognitive functions in the face of stress. It can help to prevent PTSD, decreases suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. Hey, and it increases happiness. Who doesn't want to be happy? So we're taking a page out of Jim Marshall's book here. He's the director of the 911 Training Institute, and he uses an analogy of a battery to explain resilience. And this is a very wonderful illustration because no other way have I seen it illustrated so simply. So I'm going to read this verbatim and then we're going to discuss it. Think about your cell phone battery. The longer it is used, the weaker the capacity of the battery. Each of us has mojo inside of us that our battery to handle life and to weather adversity. We need to have the energy to face and manage travel through and repair from difficult experiences. What we have is a lot of medics and first responders who are living on caffeine and willpower and not enough sleep. We have to stay charged. We need to stay in the green as much as possible because the less resilience we have, the more impacted we are psychologically by events and the more it plays out over the quality of our life. The other day, I was on a call, I was on a standby. We had a suspicious package, and for all of you that have been in the first responder realm, know that a suspicious package can last anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. So as we were standing by, one of the other first responders comes up to me and asks me if I had a phone charger in our rig, and I said, "Yeah, of course we do." And that was the main concern. The main concern was getting that battery charged. But then I asked, like, "How long you been working? How's your shift going?" "Oh, I'm tired." "Oh, it's been a long shift." "Oh, I'm taking overtime tomorrow." They were more concerned with not allowing their battery to die on their cell phone than they were about their own mental health. We cannot let ourselves get to red, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot let ourselves get to red. Keep yourself in the green, like Jim Marshall says. The idea of increasing resilience in first responders is ultimately aimed to prevent the most serious fallout that may occur from critical events and occupational conditions frequently faced in the careers of our first responders. Now, Marshall says that we are far more likely to prevent PTSD and suicidality, depression, and people bailing from their careers if we are building resilience strategically. Now, by developing resilience, a person will see reductions in negative outcomes and an increase in positive outcomes. So we'll see a reduction in high blood pressure, reduction in heartburn, indigestion, irregular blood sugar, fatigue, psychological stress, emotional activity, and more importantly, heart disease. Now, as we have increased positive outcomes, we're going to be an increase in productivity, positive outlook, goal clarity, motivation, perceived support, family connection, patience and understanding, and ability to reset after critical incidents, keeping ourselves in the green. But it's not overnight. Resilience is not an overnight issue, it's a process. Now, individuals can develop processes including coping strategies specific to each individual. Now, one strategy, tool, or protective environment that may work for one person may not work for another. Just as a critical incident may be more critical to one person than another, the process to gain resiliency that may work for you may not work for your coworker. Studies show several common factors which develop and sustain a person's resilience. These common factors are non encompassing, and a person may find some things may work better for them than others. Some people may feel that going to the gym may work for them. Some people may take up a hobby. Some people may go to a therapist. Some people may go for a hike. Whatever it is that you utilize that works for you, use it. And when things get a little bit too much, we'll discuss where to go from there. There are a few things that strongly correlate with lacking resilience through challenging experiences. Positive contributions toward resilience. So, as you have resilience, you're able to be more positive. You have the ability to make realistic plans and follow through on the steps necessary to succeed. Confidence in one's strengths and abilities, communication and problem solving skills, positive emotionality, strong affinity toward emotional regulation, perseverance and passion toward long term goals, an ability to manage strong impulses and feelings. So, what are some negative contributions toward resilience? Personality traits of neuroticism, negative emotionality, tendencies to see the world as threatening, problematic, and distressing, or viewing oneself as vulnerable. So, how do we develop resiliency? Well, some people are just born with these factors. Others may need to work on increasing traits that foster resilience. Now, think of a child who falls off their bike and hops right back on to try again. Now, we compare that child who falls off their bike and has training wheels until they're 10. Just the other day, I saw a viral video of a 8-year-old that did a backflip on a BMX bike. Now, I don't know about you, but that had to be a lot of trial and error. I'm 39, and I don't think I could do that. So his resiliency skills are pretty strong. But also remember that resilience is a skill that can be learned and improved upon. You could decrease traits that negatively affect resilience. You could increase traits that positively affect resilience. And you see all the green arrows here, they all point to resilience. These are some of the traits that will help you to build resilience. These are the positive traits, such as optimism, self belief, control of self, willingness to adapt, willingness to be flexible, ability to solve problems, emotional awareness, social support, and my favorite, a sense of humor. Insert dad joke here, right? These are all the contributing factors to build up resilience. There are many ways in which a person can focus their efforts on increasing skills, personality traits, and protective factors that may foster resilience. These may be problem focused, emotion focused, or avoidance focused. They include practicing mindfulness, meditation, cultivating positive thinking and optimism, reframing your thoughts and emotions around stressful situations, understanding and relying on your social network. Many of these traits and skills that can be cultivated can be broken down into three different types of traits, and we'll discuss them. First, you have problem focused, another one is emotion focused, and then you also have avoidance focused. Now, with the problem focused traits, there are certain traits we want to cultivate. We want to accept responsibility for solving the problem, seek advice, and ask for help. Now, as a husband, I know that's probably a hard one for all you husbands out there. Develop realistic action plans that are resolution focused. Seek accurate information. You want to postpone activities that may compete with your resolutions. And maintain an optimistic view of one's ability to resolve the issue. Now, here's some treats to avoid. You want to avoid avoiding responsibility to solve the problem. You want to avoid seeking advice or information from questionable sources. Avoid procrastination. You want to avoid the lack of follow through on plans or unrealistic plans. And avoid holding a pessimistic view on one's ability to resolve the issue. Traits to cultivate in the emotion focused traits. You want to maintain social support and empathetic friendships. You want to seek meaningful and spiritual support. You want to have a healthy way of processing emotions. Reframe and cognitive restrictions or CBT skills. Relaxation routines, and of course, physical exercise. Now, you want to avoid these other things in emotion focused traits. You want to avoid maintaining unhealthy or dysfunctional social relationships. Avoid lack of spiritual support, lack of unproductive wishful thinking, or poor emotional processing. Avoid denial. Avoid drug and alcohol abuse, and avoid aggressive behavior. Now, let's get into our avoidance focused traits. Now, to build these up, to cultivate them, you want to be able to mentally disengage from the problem temporarily, right? Step away from it. Sometimes, as we step away from something, we may be able to come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. Practice mindfulness. Engage in distracting or grounding activities temporarily. Have positive hobbies and activities. You want to engage in positive and fulfilling relationships. Now, what do you want to avoid? You want to avoid mentally disengaging from the problem for a long term. It's not going to go away. Engage in distracting activities for the long term, right? You're running away from something. You want to avoid engaging in unfulfilling and negative or distracting relationships. Now, as I discussed earlier in the broadcast, we talked a little bit about tools that you can use. These tools can be offered to you via online or even check with your employer. You have the employee assistance programs. There's classes offered at local hospitals, such as the Benson Henry Institute's Stress Management and Resiliency Training, or SMART program, individual spiritual practices, self-help books and workbooks, relaxation exercise, practicing mindfulness, meditation, which you can get in nowadays you can get in apps, also as guided meditations, creating or participating in positive social networks, and just have healthy daily habits, exercise, healthy diet, sleep. And as we talk about the classes, let's talk about kind of classes that are offered. You can have local advocacy groups and hospitals. Local advocacy groups and hospitals often offer classes. So as we look at developing resiliency and we look to outside sources such as classes, look to where those classes are offered. Usually local advocacy groups and hospitals are able to offer these classes. Now, these classes can include parenting classes, nutrition and stress reduction classes. Taking advantage of what is offered may show the kind of support systems already in place in the community to build resilient skills and practices. Such as you're going to these classes, well, the audience of those classes may be going through exactly what you're going through. So there you're also building a healthy social environment. Now, if your local hospital advocacy groups do not offer many classes, there are useful webinars offered at a low cost to build resilient skills. The Benson Henry Institute Stress Management and Resiliency Training, also known as SMART program. Now, what does this offer? This offers a training for relaxation, response, and resiliency. It's designed to teach self-care practices to buffer stress and aid participants in remaining less emotionally and physically vulnerable to their experienced stress. Now, what else does it do? It helps participants. It helps participants by helping them to understand the connection between stress and physical and emotional problems. Learn techniques that will create a relaxation response. Learn the role of positive thoughts and beliefs. And understand the importance of healthy eating, restorative sleep, and exercise. Now, let's look into the individual spiritual practices. Research of victims in concentration camps, kidnapping, and other traumatic events helps us understand that those who have a belief in a power greater than themselves and employ spiritual practices have an easier time getting through traumatic experiences. Spiritual practices foster resilience. Consider your own beliefs, consider your own faith. Now, what are ideas and practices that typically you use to get through difficult times? Now, these are different for each person, and what works again for one may not work for another. And as we are talking with a coworker about resiliency, help them to also understand that what doesn't work for you may work for them and vice versa. You may find it beneficial to meet with clergy or spiritual leaders who support your beliefs. Self-help books and workbooks. Now, there are countless self-help books available with varying practices and effectiveness. You can go onto YouTube right now and find many motivational speakers. It's an oversaturated market, and it's important to do research before utilizing your time on heavily padded books. These books may do little more than offer anecdotal examples and models of improvement, which may or may not work. Self help books and handbooks do not replace receiving professional help from a mental health provider. It's not a quick fix. Do your research on your motivational speakers and self help authors. Now, when you're seeking out quality self help books, we got some tips for you here. Now, these may help you in building skills that will create resilience. So, when you're out there looking for quality self help books that may aid in building skills that will create resilience, we got a couple tips for you. You want to look for books specific to your career, because who better to understand what you're going through than someone who understands what you're going through? Read the reviews, right? Especially from those who have purchased the book. And you can find these reviews on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, or other prominent providers. And they're generally listed from best to worst. You want to focus on highly rated books and books recommended by mental health professionals aimed at treating mental health issues that may reduce resiliency. We have a list of books here, such as The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, Feeling Good, A New Mood Therapy by David D. Burns, MD, The Feeling Good Handbook, David D. Burns, and When Panic Attacks, again, David D. Burns. Then you have the Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook by Matthew McKay, PhD. And lastly, DBT Skills Trading Handouts and Worksheets by Marcia Linen. So when you go out there and you look for these self-help books or workbooks, make sure they're not making outrageous promises of fast and easy change. Simply affirm the well-known saying often attributed to P.T. Barnum. There's a sucker born every minute. If a book offers a fast and easy changes, it is probably too good to be true. How many times have we seen on late night TV? 3 easy payments of $33.95. You can feel better, healthy, more fabulous, fit, fun, everything you ever want to be. In 90 days, we're going to make sure that you are everything that you ever wanted to be. Now, it doesn't work like that because it's not real change. Because real change and improvement in resilience is a process and it takes time, effort, and consistent work. When there's a true need to seek professional mental health treatment, relying on self help books and handbooks could, at best, offer little to no help for the underlying issue, and at worst, be fatal. So, to help in the development of your resiliency, you might want to practice mindfulness. Now, what is mindfulness? Well, mindfulness is a psychological process of bringing one's attention to experiences occurring in the present without judgment. This can be developed through meditation and other training. Clinical psychology and psychiatry have developed therapeutic applications of mindfulness that have been helpful in treating depression, PTSD, anxiety, drug addiction, and other issues. Mindfulness has been linked to positive traits and protective factors that lead to resilience and lower incidence of mental health issues after experiencing critical or traumatic events. Now, traits that may increase this are self esteem, empathy, emotional regulation, and of course, optimism. Traits that can reduce this is instances of depression, neuroticism, disassociation, anxiety, experiential avoidance, psychosis. As we talk about meditation and relaxation exercises, we need to understand what meditation is. Meditation is a practice a person will use a variety of techniques to be able to train their individual awareness toward achieving mentally and emotionally calm state. Work on your mindfulness. You could do this by focusing on a particular object, thought, or activity. As we talk about meditation and relaxation exercises, many of us may feel that we don't know how to do that. We need someone to help us, to guide us. Well, nowadays, with everyone having their cell phones and apps and so on and so forth, there are many different apps out there that are designed to help you to get into a meditative or relaxing state. But just like the self help books, you want to ensure that they are supplemented to what you're already doing. They should not be used exclusively by a person to treat their condition. You can find this on Google Play, Android, Chrome devices, Apple Store. Look up meditation. Now, these are just a quick and easy, simple tool to help you start getting into meditation. And as you get more into it, you can look for a little bit more and more and more. Creating or participating in positive social networks. There's the key positive. The level of resilience has much to do with our circle of support. In addition to personal strengths, skill set, and personality traits, communities, institutions, and support we receive from personal relationships has a lot to do with our resiliency. Resiliency research proves the availability of social support in all forms matters and helps us in facing challenges. Now, we may think it's easier to make changes within ourselves when it comes to facing adversity, but research suggests that positive relationships and supportive environments have an important role to play as well. Healthy daily habits. I don't think that your healthy daily habits don't have a big key factor in your resiliency, right? There's a simplicity of taking care of and improving your general physical health. Stress can take both a significant emotional and physical toll on the body and mental health of a person. There are three things that we can do every day to improve resilience in the face of difficult working conditions and critical events that first responders may face every day. This is what we could control: getting exercise, our diet, and our sleep. Now, with a diet is what we consume, right? So, with that being said, should our diet just be about food? No, it's what we read, it's what we surround ourselves with, it's what we listen to. Let's talk about exercise. We all know how important exercise is. We need to understand that aerobic exercise has been proven to give you stress, but in important ways, such as producing feel good chemicals, using up the stress hormone, protecting brain cells against the effect of stress, and then lowers blood pressure. Having a habit of daily exercise will naturally increase both your physical health and mental health. Additionally, using physical exercise as a tool when stress increases is also helpful. So when you start to feel stress, go for a brisk walk. Do some push ups, pull ups, do some shadow boxing. Get that heart rate out. Get it up. Get that heart rate up. Healthy diet. Now, as I said before, diet is anything you consume. We're going to mainly focus on foods here, but remember that as you consume things, also it's what you're listening to, what you're reading. Now, as we talk about foods here, we want to understand that a diet is consisting of healthy whole foods like vegetables, fruits, nuts, whole grains, and fish, and these have been proven to fight depression compared to diets filled with sugary, processed, or fried foods. Those who suffer from depression are more likely to lack resilience in the face of stressful events. Please do not underestimate the effects of a healthy diet on your mind and body. Sleep. Sleep. I can't tell you how much I love sleep. I am a nap man. I love my naps. So I can relate to this topic. Sleep deprivation is difficult to avoid as first responders, and we discussed that a little bit in the webinar about how it doesn't matter if you run one call or 1,000 calls, your mind is consistently awaiting that next call. So while we may sleep, we're not resting. Getting adequate sleep is essential in building resilience in the face of stress. Sleep deprivation can lead to difficulties with memory, attention, cognitive abilities, and quick decision making, all of which could cause significant issues in both the personal and professional lives of first responders. Now, as a general rule, aim for about 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. Now, as we discuss healthy daily habits, we understand that the thoughts of implementing these three practices can be daunting. It's important to be self aware enough to know when to push through aggressively and when just to focus on one at a time. But the most important thing here is that you keep moving forward. You want to work on and utilize one or several, if you're able to, of these skills that will boost resilience every day. Make a habit out of it. The more you practice, the better you'll be at dealing with stressful events and occupational conditions that may lead to negative physical and mental health issues. This gradual process is how you become more and more resilient as a person. How does resiliency prevent PTSD? Post traumatic stress disorder risk is increased significantly by the cumulative effect of multiple, severe, uncontrollable critical events that may be experienced by first responders throughout their career. Now, how little we actually know about preventing PTSD is illustrated after exposure to a traumatic emotional event. And this has been illustrated by recent research during critical incident stress debriefing. Now, what is CISD or critical incident stress debriefing? Well, that involves a single 1 hour or 3 hour individual or group session soon after the critical event. This allows people to vent their emotions and relive traumatic experiences. It was the major intervention following 9/11 and was found to be relatively ineffective. CISD may be more harmful than helpful. A 2003 interdisciplinary task force assembled by the American College of Neuropsychopharmacology concluded that it is possible that reliving and rehearsing raw emotion leads to consolidation of traumatic memories. Now, knowing which specific resiliency factor will be successful in preventing PTSD for each individual is simply impossible. There's no prediction. Significant research has been done for both the prevention and treatment of PTSD. It is impossible to create a one size fits all approach to treatment. Remember that individual experiences differ, beliefs differ, personality traits differ, strengths and weaknesses differ. All of these color the prevention and recovery of PTSD and other mental health conditions. Now remember, resilience to stress is associated consistently with at least 6 psychosocial factors: active coping styles, regular physical exercise, positive outlook, a moral compass, social support, cognitive flexibility. While not every person will utilize each of these factors by relying consistently on some or all of these protective resilience factors, those experiencing stress or traumatic events may become more resistant to the development of PTSD and other mental health conditions. Researchers have been unable to identify specifically which specific resiliency factors will be successful in the prevention of PTSD in each individual. Therefore, it is important as a first responder to develop as many protective, resilient factors, skills, and utilize as many tools that are available. First responders face a significantly higher risk of PTSD and other mental health conditions than the general population. Remember that resilience, rather than pathology, should become the standard expectation in the aftermath of trauma. Now we're going to get into the respond method. I know everyone loves acronyms, so here we have an acronym respond, RESPOND. Now, using this method to watch out for warning signs of PTSD and other mental health conditions. Research suggests better training in PTSD, prevention, or critical incident stress management and earlier treatment for first responders is crucial. First responders experience ongoing cumulative trauma throughout our careers. Now we're going to use the word respond, right? RESPOND. And using that, we've created a mnemonic. Now, what it does is helps us perform a checkup on each other to help mitigate effects of trauma experienced as first responders. Now, these checkups will improve our overall mental health and well being. R for respond, R for resiliency. Research shows that resiliency is critical for both preventing and overcoming PTSD. Predicting which resiliency factors will be most beneficial to each individual is impossible. Understanding what factors, skills, and protective environments work for you is essential in fostering individual resilience. E. Experience. Each call teaches first responders in a different way, and every person's takeaway will be colored by individuals' outlook and skills. Supervisors should realize everyone deals with experiences differently, and experiences can have a cumulative effect. Remember, we can all experience that one call that ultimately became the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, a seemingly simple experience can have a detrimental effect on the first responder. And no one, not just any, one experience or one person's reaction should be ignored. S for speak. We want to foster an environment where first responders are empowered to speak about what bothers them. It is essential to verbalize these issues. Now, speaking with someone who understands what has been experienced as a first responder is essential. Speaking about the issue gives participants a chance to discuss why it is troubling and make adjustments in the treatment of difficult issues. P. Preparation. Dealing with the stress that stems from critical incidents first responders will face throughout their career takes preparation. Preparing yourself before experiencing critical incidents and traumatic events is an essential tool that cannot be ignored in the preparation for your work as a first responder. Starting with self awareness, then taking the time to study resilient factors, developing the skills, practices, and other factors that work for you as an individual is just as important in your preparation to become an effective first responder as any other technical training that you may have been given. O for observe. Self awareness is a key factor in fostering resilience, and it is important that you observe yourself and your team for signs of symptoms of PTSD. Things that would be helpful to watch for in yourself and those with whom you work with include flashbacks, physiological responses such as rapid breathing, sweating, increased heart rate, nightmares, difficulty concentrating, difficulty remembering traumatic events, being easily startled, intense anger response, sleep disorders, hypervigilance, and emotional numbness and avoidance of places, people, and activities that are reminders of the trauma. N for needs. Everyone has needs and feelings that cannot be escaped. We can divert our attention away temporarily from our needs, but ultimately ignoring our emotional needs can lead to cognitive dissonance, PTSD, or other mental health issues. Now, to understand our motivating behaviors, it is important to understand and recognize which of our needs are being met. Now, a lot of you have probably heard of Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, Abraham Maslow, in his paper, A Theory of Human Motivation, extended the idea that lower level needs must be satisfied in order to pursue higher level needs. This has often been modeled in a 5-tier pyramid of needs referenced as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, as you can see here, the physiological needs are first: food, water, warmth, rest. Then we get to our security and safety, all the way to self actualization. Now, Maslow labeled the hierarchy using the terms physiological, safety, belonging and love, social needs, esteem, self actualization. This describes the pattern that human motivations generally move. Now, the hierarchy states that a lower level must be completely satisfied and fulfilled before moving on to a higher pursuit. However, today's scholars prefer to think of these levels as continuously overlapping each other. What this means is that the lower levels may take precedence over the other levels at any point, any time. And finally, discuss. First responders should discuss at a regular interval of their feelings, experiences, and thoughts with someone they trust, such as your partner, a trusted friend, your crew, a supervisor, spiritual leader, or a mental health professional. Acknowledging specific events or cumulative effects of your job as a first responder has affected you is essential in healing properly. If left untreated, critical events and cumulative effects of trauma experienced by first responders can evolve into significant mental health issues. And that's respond. Well, the goal of respond method is to provide the best and most valuable help to those who need it most. It should be used as frequently as needed. Now, you want to pay close attention to your needs and the needs of your coworkers. It's essential to ensure that no one walks alone in their emotional trauma. The respond method can be used effectively to target early warning signs of PTSD and speed up intervention times in order to achieve better long-term mental and emotional health. First responders and anyone who routinely faces frequent critical events may find that resilience is a critical skill for them to develop. The key word here is develop. It's not an instant step or something that you could be gained from reading a course or meditating once. It's a process. There are many tools that are available for individuals to increase their level of resilience, including meeting with mental health professionals, meditation, and mindfulness. Now, while self help books and applications may have limited helpfulness, they should not act as a substitute for any of the above. With the above in mind, the mindset from experiencing a critical event can shift from the end result being experienced trauma to the end result being resilient. Again, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Have a great day, and remember, be your best advocate.